Okay, so it's the same for the seats. Anywhere past halfway, I'm just going to line it up with the inside back. You don't need to do that. It's just wherever you want to do this, anywhere past halfway again. But I'm just going to line it up to the inside back just because it's easy enough to do that. Pin at the back and then pin along the front, nice and tight, taking away the excess fabric. And then all we're doing, we know that it's a 2-inch tucking down here, so all I need to do is find my tape measure and just measure 2 inches plus your seam allowance, whatever seam allowance you're working to, whether it's 1/2 inch or 3/4. So that's 2 inches plus my seam. Same all the way to the back, just cut all the way to the back like so. Same along the back like so. And then all we need to do is put our halfway notch again. So 19 inches width, so 9.5 is my halfway. So put the notch in there, and then all we're doing is tucking everything away. So nice and straight, tuck this away nice and level, like so. And all along the tucking away, side of the seat, nice and tight. And then what we're left with is excess fabric on the front. You can see my seam allowance there. I've left the seam allowance turned up. So all we're going to do is we're going to put a dart on the front of the seat. All we're doing is picking up the darts and pinning nice and tight into the front of the seat. Like so. And then we're just trimming off. So I've left my seam allowance down the dart there. So my machinists know I always go with 1/4 inch, so they will just follow the shape and then they'll sew into the top. I always leave the cut 1/4 inch away from where I want the dart to finish. So I've just cut short at the top there, 1/4 inch from the tip of the dart. So my machinist will sew the seam in here and then they'll just trim the seam just past where I finish cutting, 1/4 inch past there, then that will give a nice clean crisp dart. And then down the front here, we'll just follow down where the seam is, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom like so, and then I'm going to trim again. I'm just going to trim this off like so, because on the table we will add the seam on here, so we can put plus seam and an arrow, so we know to add the seam onto here when we come to cut on the table. And then all we're doing, we're going to take the seat underneath and we'll be velcroing underneath the chair all the way around. So I'll just be looking for the frame under the chair and taking the cover to the edge of the frame.